How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Coach McVay Show, presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC. The Rams are tied for the best record in the NFC at 6-2. We're heading to San Francisco in Week 10 for a rematch with the Niners. What's up, Sean? Good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
Always good to be with you on a Victory Monday. I thought we could start with a shout-out to the crowd at SoFi Stadium. Yeah. I mean, it's my favorite thing when the Rams are playing well in front of Rams fans. How great was that?
It was awesome, and it's such a good reminder. What an amazing home that Mr. Kroenke's built, and, the fans bring it to life, that atmosphere, that environment. It was a real edge, and when you can feel that kind of stuff, and SoFi's rocking, our players feed off of that. I thought they were quiet when the offense was out there, so loud when the defense was out there, and it was a big edge and a big advantage for us, and we're certainly grateful and want to continue to give them reasons to cheer for us.
I think many of them riding that championship vibe from the Dodgers Game 7 World Series triumph. I heard it was maybe the shortest Saturday night meeting at the hotel the Rams have ever had.
It was. I told him, I said, I had a great speech prepared for you guys, but as soon as the ninth ended, we had a quick team meeting, really just to be able to, show the highlights from the previous week, give a couple little messages, and then they were back down there to watch them finish that thing off. But it was really cool to be able to see the authentic and genuine excitement, for the Dodgers and watching what they overcame, especially, from that adversity that they faced in that series when they really just go through up into the World Series, don't drop a game in the midst of being able to get there. But, everything that they're about culturally, when you hear the way that those players talk about one another, the mental toughness, the resolve, the trust that Dave Roberts has in his players with the decisions that he was making and some of the substitutions in the lineup. I certainly hope that we are able to mimic and emulate a lot of the things that's right about them, not exclusive to being back-to-back world champs, but how they go about it with the people and their vibe and their culture. And I'm a huge Dave Roberts fan, huge Dodgers fan, and our guys were fired up watching. That was pretty cool.
That was awesome to hear. Thanks for spelling that out. Stafford's been there in person for some of those moments.
Oh, yeah.
Let's start with his moment in time right now. And I want to ask about a hot mic moment that the TV copy caught at the line of scrimmage. Did you see this in the third quarter?
I didn't.
It was 3rd and 2 from your own 40. You had a couple tight ends trying to get a range on the right side.
Yeah.
And I'll clean up his language, but he basically said, somebody get on.
Yeah, I believe it. I remember the exact play because he and I were probably yelling the same exact thing to Ferg to get on in that situation right there.
And you pick it up with Corum for 3 yards when all's said and done. But what does that speak to just the command that he has of the entire all-22 perspective? Not just a hot hand, but a hot mind.
Yeah, I can't say enough about it, and whether it's, his play with the production, but even something like that, with any other quarterback that I've been around, how special is that to make it right when it's not going to be right? And there was a little bit of a miscommunication, and that extends and, allows us to continue on another scoring drive because of his clarity, his ownership, his autonomy. But there's a belief, there's a confidence because of the way that this guy goes about his work, his resume, his ability to be able to authentically connect with his teammates. And, you say it all the time, and I've said it so many times on here, when your quarterback can truly be an extension of the coaching staff. And oh, by the way, when you really freaking mean it, that is such a big deal. And I just think his capacity, his love for his teammates, his enjoyment for competing, this guy doesn't have to still be playing football. And he wants to, and he loves doing it. And I think it comes through when you watch him. There's a real joy at which he's playing this game. There's a real command. The game is slowed down for him right now. And I feel like he and I and really him with our coaching staff with Dave Ragone and Mike LaFleur and really all of us collectively are very much in lockstep. And if he's right, there's a lot of good things in store for the Rams.
All right, after last week, you had to know I'd be coming back with a next-gen stats are for losers for you. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, 16 touchdowns, no picks against the blitz this year.
Yep.
It was great last year, too. Why are teams still blitzing Matthew Stafford?
Well, shoot, keep doing it if that's the production. I think in a lot of the instances too, he's done a great job in the tight red area. Usually those are the type of coverage contours that you're going to get. So there is some layers to that, I'm sure, but this guy's he's in command. He's playing really well, and it's not exclusive to when he's seeing the blitz. It's plays like that on short yardage when we're running the football. It's getting us in and out of the right looks. Because I think the other thing is, one of the stats that I actually do think is reasonably, appropriate to acknowledge is turnover-worthy plays. that's not necessarily a stat. People just look at, do you throw interceptions, do you not? But are you making good decisions where the ball should go based on the coverage and the intent of these plays? And then are you putting the ball in harm's way? And sometimes you get away with it where a guy might drop it. He's not having a lot of turnover-worthy plays. So the 21-2 is a real thing that's reflected in his consistent decision-making, which is a real factor. But the timing, the decision-making, the accuracy, the ability for guys to be able to create after the catch, the ability to be able to not take negatives and keep us on schedule or then be able to overcome it with some of the 3rd and long conversions we had yesterday. He's a total stud, and he's playing really good. And the best part about him is he never gets complacent, and he's going to be excited to attack this week with the preparation because our team, and especially Matthew Stafford, knows his confidence on Sunday comes from the work, no words that you can say.
Yeah. Spreading the wealth, too. 7 different Rams had multiple catches. That hadn't happened in about 5 years for this team.
Is that right?
Tight
That's
ends
awesome.
had 10 of his 24 completions. You talked about how valuable those tight ends were to your run surface
That's right.
as well. What does that mean to be able to deploy, either to go fast and stay in your personnel groups as you've always done, or now to be able to platoon in ways that keep some tread on the tires?
That's huge. I think what it does is it gives you more things that people have to defend. You're taking advantage. I think the most important thing that you can do is how do you authentically create value for the collective? So, everybody throws around, everybody wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Yeah, well, there's a caveat to that. As long as they feel like their role has value and can contribute to where you want to go. What I think's been really cool that's been reflected from our team, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, is I think our coaches and really our players, when you got 48 guys up on game day, every single one of those guys, certain guys might play more snaps than the other, but everybody really has a role that's been, really important and valuable. And I think that's allowed us to stay fresher. I think you get the best out of guys. And then I think we've started to see that reflected on the offensive side of the ball, some by nature of, all right, got some guys out. How do you adjust and adapt? But it's taken advantage of the totality of the group, the 13 personnel we've obviously leaned into the last couple weeks. But, I think those tight ends as a whole, what a cool group they are, led by Scooter Huff, but with Tyler Higbee, Colby Parkinson, Davis Allen, and Terrence Ferguson continuing to show, just growth and maturity, and really those other 3 as well. They're a fun group to be around, and they give us the opportunity to be a little bit more versatile, and they can contribute and compete in both phases, which is incredibly valuable, for us as a group.
You'd have been 5 for 5 in the red zone yesterday if not for that offensive face mask. And look, Davis Allen, I'm not condoning the foul, but I don't hate it. I don't hate the disposition
it was
from him.
unintentional, man. The general didn't mean to do that, man. He's the general, man. That's his nickname, the general right there. Davis, so it was a great run after catch. Had him on a little keeper, and obviously we got to get the hand down right there, but nobody's more bummed about that than he is, and those are things that we can learn from and correct. But I think there's a lot of positive growth that we've seen from that group in particular, and we got like 37 snaps of that off yesterday, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. So Matthew and your offensive line, they play the whole way. Nobody else on offense plays more than 70% of snaps. And another way you see it, I think, is the 1-2 punch at running back. Where you see Kyron go for 100 for the first time this season, career best 58 for Blake. Is that more what you imagined using them in tandem this year?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think they positively played off of one another. And I think as the game wore on, we were able to get, more efficient with some of the runs. We ended up being a little bit more, we threw it a little bit more than we ran it in the early parts of the game. You're able to get a lead, and then you play the game that's necessary to ultimately come out with the result you want. But I thought we loosened them up as the game went. I thought our guys played really well, our 5 across the board, and then you add the different guys to the blocking surface, and Kyron and Blake both, they ran really well. Again, Ron does a great job with that group, but I was really happy for them. It was good for Kyron to be able to punch that in, and he and Blake, I think they positively spelled one another, and to be able to see them both produce is ideal, and to be able to balance out those snaps, I think, is ideal for them both as well.
All right, time for our film breakdown segment presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot plus PC, where every day is game day. And it's the third quarter touchdown drive, which became 16 plays, 80 yards, nearly 10 minutes of possession. Sean, we're going to go through 3rd down and 12, but before we do, a bit of context here for everyone to refresh our memory. You're up 10 at this point, first possession of the second half. You've already converted a couple 3rd and 2s to keep the drive alive. But here Matthew had just been sacked. And in fact, New Orleans used a challenge to try and say that he had fumbled and to get the possession. So I wouldn't have faulted you for a draw or a screen or something. Maybe you get it. Maybe you punt and play defense. It's not what you did.
Yeah, and I can't say that I didn't think about that because of the momentum of the game, different things like that. But then you're saying, all right, hey, our guys have protected really well. We've had some really good examples of being able to trust our guys. There was a situation where we liked the particular play. And, Matthew, what an unbelievable job. First of all, it starts with great protection. Unbelievable job by those guys battling up front. It's a 4-man rush, a little bit of penetration from the right side there. But, Matthew right here, when you look at it, he sets like he's throwing an out cut and not so fast, my friend. He throws a deep in cut, gets the hook player to be able to expand where he wanted him to. And nobody does it better than this guy. And the cool thing is this is in real rhythm on his second hitch. It makes a play that, that's good versus that look, but he makes it even better. I remember Cooper used to say he makes things that should be pretty good wide open because of the way that he's able to displace and get defenders, to move where he wants. And unbelievable job by he and Devontae being on the same page. And, the athletic instincts, the appreciation that I have for this kind of stuff is pretty unique and special. And he's the only one that can truly articulate it, because to have the courage and the guts to be able to execute these things in real time, it's one thing to do these things in practice, but look no further than what he, got a bunch of love for and respect for, doing that in the, the biggest moment on the Super Bowl a few years ago. But that's been consistent for him. And I think the key thing is he's doing it in rhythm. It's one thing, there still is a timing and rhythm to everything. And he's able to manipulate and move people in rhythm is the key thing. You still have a rush that's very real. This isn't 7-on-7 football. And for him to be able to do that, and he and Devontae to be able to connect, that was big, man. And I think that might be our first 3rd and 10 plus conversion that we've had this year. It's not something I'm proud of, but I'm excited that we got. Hey, every stream starts at 1.
You've been living in 3rd and short. Good for you.
Stay
on
track.
What?
We've been that has been a positive. I think we've had one of the shorter, distances on 3rd down, which is a credit to the guys' efficiency on 1st and 2nd down. But being able to make those different plays and allow us to be able to stay aggressive but not reckless, I think is key. And I mentioned in the post game, it's cool where you can feel, when you have the ability, and I don't think many people can really say this around the league, I can call the game through our quarterback. Man, that's a real blessing for us, and we can do that with our guy.
Let's go ahead and tack on the touchdown as well. 4th of the day for Matthew, 2nd to Devontae, and after the fade ball tape those two put on display in London, I would have bet you a starburst that you were going to cross face on somebody on the goal line, and that's exactly what Devontae did on his first touchdown. But now, Sean, you got him coming and going. I mean, not that anyone doubted Devontae could do it. He's been doing it for a generation.
That's right.
But you've got defenders in conflict now in the red zone.
It's great, and I think you're going to get a lot of these isolation. And this is one they were even doubling him outside, and they still ended up, winning. And you could see, that they lose leverage, and it's just, I'm just going to go up and play bigger than you at the catch point. And this is a guy that is a really good corner that I have a ton of respect for, that in the previous week against a really good player had 2 wins in some fade situations, one versus, a good player, and then, really 2 big time stops he had. And Devontae and Matthew, their confidence is growing, and it's from the work they're putting in. This was big time right there. And, you're going to elicit a lot of these types of coverage contours when you get in the tight red area, and when you can have somebody, when you look at good red zone teams, guys are usually being automatic versus one-on-ones, and that's what we've seen from him the last couple weeks.
Quick tangent here. This is nothing new. This has been happening throughout your tenure, but recently there's been some close-ups of your play sheet, right? You're talking into your quarterback's helmet. Any concern about people reading the back of your play sheet and getting some of your calls?
No. You don't know when we're calling it. If you can read the actual plays, you might be able to read like what I write at the top of it. That's more of just reminders for myself. Could you pick anything off from yesterday?
I didn't study anything yesterday. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch the TV copy, but I know some screenshots have been making the rounds, and that's why.
Yeah, you got to let me know what actually gets out there, because I try to be pretty disciplined so my feelings aren't hurt if I look too deeply into some of that stuff.
I mean, maybe you should just write something, a memo on the backside of your play sheet.
That's
see
right.
if anybody notices.
Sometimes I don't know which way I'm covering it, but I have seen some screen grabs, more of just the motivational things that I'll write to myself that shows you what a tool I really am.
What I did notice is not just the rookie Halloween Sean Dolak costume, but there was a McVay impersonator at SoFi yesterday on the infinity screen. Did
was
that catch
there?
You? Oh, yeah, it's pretty good.
I didn't see it.
Is that flattering, or is that like a, hey, knock it off, let's get to
Depends
Thanksgiving?
on when I see the person, I'll tell you. There was one, my wife, at the Baltimore game sat right behind a guy that he was right 50-yard line, right behind our bench, that had the full garb, a headset, red flag in his back right pocket like I wear, and he never broke character. It was impressive and creepy at the same time, but I did not see yesterday. I must not have been able to peek up at that moment. So.
All right, well, Maybe it's-
Dolak did good though, even
was-
though he does look more like Shula. But what made the rounds wasn't even the best impersonation he did, because I think guys knew at that point in the team meeting we don't really allow phones. But then it got to a fun section where we were kind of all right. It was a little bit looser, different, where guys are having fun with some of the rookies that dressed up for Halloween. And, that part that Dolak, that they showed, that was funny, but that wasn't even the best part, where he came in and started the team meeting acting like me. He was greeting people walking into the team meeting. And I sat there and I thought to myself, man, I do that, don't I? I mean, he did a heck of a job. I appreciate that he leaned all the way in, and guys certainly had fun with it, and I had to sit there and think, man, I really do some of that stuff, but he did a nice job with it.
I love seeing that peek behind the curtain, and not that we want phones in team meeting rooms, but that was special to see and to pay it off with a victory too. You mentioned he's more of a Chris Shula lookalike. Maybe that's the next challenge for Rams fans,
That's right.
is to start imitating Chris and his defense, and we'll transition
Not a
there.
bad person to imitate.
For Emmanuel Forbes, I don't want to say forget the interception, because that was great, his first as a Ram, but how about the hitting? I mean,
That's
that
what I
red
loved.
zone tackle on Taysom Hill.
And that was one of my those were the favorite things that I had. Not he's obviously got great ball skills, and it was cool for him to get his first pick as a Ram. But I think there's been great work that he's put in. I love the relationship between he and Aubrey, he and his teammates, and just the confidence that he's earned by how he's practiced. And it was really cool for him to do that. But any great defense, all 11 tackle. And I was so fired up to see that. He's tough. He's playing tougher. He's really taking care of himself to get himself physically and mentally in positions to be able to make those plays. And nothing cooler than to see these guys, the work pay off, and success is never linear, and I think it makes it, there's never a good story without a little bit of adversity or some challenges along the way. And Forbes is a fun guy to root for, really this team as a whole, but I loved watching what he did yesterday. But if you said, are you surprised? No, I wasn't surprised at all. Just happy for him and his teammates.
Roger McCreary, just special teams in his Rams debut, but what did you learn about him in his first week here in Woodland Hills?
Well, the athleticism, he's a Ram. I like his vibe. I like his approach. I like the way that he went about his practice rhythm and routine, getting up to speed. He's a really smart guy. He was working at the outside corner. He'll obviously start to get a chance to be able to have some inside and outside flex for us. Thought he brought overall athleticism, speed, and urgency to our perimeter play on special teams. We had a lot of punt returns. We only had a couple punts, but he showed some good overall speed on the perimeter, and then I liked his vibe throughout the week. He's really smart, conscientious. We're grateful to have him on board.
D. Will back for the Niners game?
I think so. We'll see. That was kind of always the plan that we've had in place. And that was kind of a target goal. But until we get him back out there, see how he's positively responding to some of the different things, that he faced, with that little setback against the Jags, we'll see. But that is the hope and optimism.
How about Puka? Anyone else we need to monitor?
Puka should be, we'll find out a little bit more. We're doing this a little bit earlier than normally, which I appreciate you guys working with me on. But I think he's going to be good, and we'll have some, further information once we get rolling on Wednesday with our guys.
Sounds good. Fourth down defense. Kobe Turner makes a splash play, but I think it's been a characteristic of this entire team. They've been able to play with some leads, forcing teams to get aggressive with their fourth down decisions. Got to count those as takeaways too, right?
Oh, they are. Oh, we say it. Hey, a fourth down stop, is a takeaway. We talk about that in the team meeting, and that's why some of the comments about stats are for losers, I say, because, hey, how do we impact and influence each and every play? And every play has a different story, and, and you got to be able to understand it in the totality. And I know that. But those fourth down stops were key and critical. And I think, we've been awesome in the red zone, making people snap it one more time. I think we've done a great job these last 2 weeks of really being able to play complementary ball to get leads, to force people to be a little bit more one-dimensional. But our ability to tighten up in the most critical area of the field has been a real edge for us. It's why we're one of the best defenses in the league. And I think it's a real credit to, our coaching staff, but also, the mental fortitude of our players to be able to make them snap it one more time. Big time play by Kobe Turner. Awesome pick by Forbes that was on a fourth down. They just got stop after stop. It was big time. And then, Landman forcing another fumble.
Man.
What a stud he is on that.
What a swing in the right hand
I
again.
know.
Hate to see Byron Young's sack streak snapped at 9 games, but what a way to finish it. I mean, he took the 10th away from himself.
Yeah, he did. And there's a big emphasis on, protecting the head and neck of those quarterbacks. And the hard part is you got to change your target, and I mean, he wins clean. Obviously, he's not meaning to make head or neck contact with Shao there. It was a great rush and what a violent finish, but a good learning op for us, because, that was a critical play for us. It was a great job by him and, just a good reminder, let's lower that target. And hey, is it hard? Is it favorable for defensive guys? No, it's not, but that's how it's officiated. Sure. And, let's not complain about it. Let's learn from it and keep it moving.
Braden Fiske did get his, however. He's the 12th Ram to record a sack this season. Good to see the Kingpin get in the column.
It was awesome. And what's cool is we talked about this a little bit. You look at the Jacksonville game, and there were so many examples of him doing a phenomenal job of moving, making, Lawrence move that opened up some other guys an opportunity to get on the stat sheet. But you could see, the guys, they appreciate being able to get some of their stats. Fiske is a grown man, though, and knows where his role and how much he's, how much he's contributed to the collective of our team being where we are in terms of the sack production and the ability to create negatives or get off the grass. But it was cool for him to be able to get on the stat sheet with the one we had yesterday.
Obviously, I'm procrastinating a little bit here before talking about the third phase because I know it's the one that's not keeping up with the rest of the unit. Where are we with Joshua Carty, with Chase Blackburn and company in the kicking game?
Yeah, so where we're at is just like I said in the post game. We've leaned in. And our job and specifically my job is to say, hey, when you're looking at, all right, our rhythm, our routine, our commitment to being able to communicate with clarity and understand what are the techniques and the fundamentals that are required for all 11. It does take all 11. Football is the greatest team sport that there is, and in this phase, there's instances where you'll see some things over the next couple of days reflected in what we feel like will give us the best chance to move forward. And it's never easy. Some of those will probably be personnel driven. I do feel like we've got a good handle on what we want to do in terms of the tactical communication, the fundamentals. I think our protection has significantly improved, but it takes all 11. And like I said to you guys yesterday, I don't think blaming any one individual and having to sit down and really understand the totality is the most important thing. What I do care about is making sure for our football team that we're able to identify, we're able to, understand, all right, where are those problems? And then are we being solution oriented, whether that's personnel or scheme driven, to be able to move forward? Because like I said yesterday, this has got to get fixed. It can't continue like this. We've overcome it in some instances, and then where we've seen where we weren't able to in other instances. But, I think the most important thing is identify the things that we think aren't in alignment with where we want to go. What are those things that are going to be done, whether that's personnel or tactically driven? And then how can we ultimately not look backwards, but look forward and ultimately have the success that we're looking for, where that ball is consistently going through the uprights with all 11 on that group doing what they're capable of. And everyone has a responsibility, and it's not exclusive to Josh. It's not exclusive to Ethan. It's not exclusive to Alex. But all of those parts are incredibly important.
Hearing you speak last night and again here today, I'm reading tea leaves, but there seems to be a sentiment where you don't want to give up on Joshua Carty.
No.
And also, he deserves to be evaluated in fair circumstances because it is an all-11 perspective. And why cut a talent like him loose until you know what he's capable of in better circumstances?
That's right. I think that's fair. And I think what's really hard is that no different than a quarterback throwing interceptions or offensive line giving up sacks, I think in a lot of instances, those positions are sometimes unfairly attributed the large portion of the blame. In this instance, the coolest thing about Josh is he'll be the first to tell you where his accountability lies. That's what you love about him. And we want people that have extreme ownership. But we also have an ability to acknowledge, all right, is it exclusive to him? And in a lot of instances, I think sometimes it's not. And and that's really why you say, I'm not ready to give up on him. I've seen this guy overcome some adversity, but is he going to have the opportunity and the ability to be able to earn the right to consistently be out there? You probably will see that reflected by some moves over the next couple days. But that doesn't, signal anything other than I think people are at their best when they're earning it. And I've seen Josh Carty at his best when his back's against the wall.
I mean, there's position groups all over this team that have benefited from depth and competition. I hope the kicking game is the next unit that we're talking about here on future shows. Trade deadline is coming up shortly.
Yeah.
Should we expect the Rams to roll with who they've got in the building?
I think that's probably the most likely scenario. What I've learned, being in the 9th year is you never speak in absolutes, but maybe different in other years where maybe something was imminent. This isn't, the case. But if there is something that does, you always, learn to never speak in absolutes, but it's definitely not something that we've discussed and something that I see on the horizon if I was a betting man.
I'm kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth because I've been here when the Rams have benefited from bringing in a key piece, and it kind of gives the whole building a shot in the arm, like we're stepping on the gas and going for this. But knowing how much you love this roster, could it work the other way too, where once the trade deadline passes, people settle in, feel comfortable with themselves, and feel confident in what they're going to do down the stretch?
I think so. And I think the guys feel that. I think that's been reflected in the way they've played. I think you especially look at it as, the way that the defense has played, the way that the offense has played. We've talked about there hasn't been all negatives in the kicking game, but obviously the one we've talked about the most is the field goal operation. The 2 times that we did have to punt, I thought the one we covered really well against an excellent returner who's as dangerous as they get. And then Ethan in the other one on the second drive of the game did a great job of being able to pin them deep. So there was some positives there, but I think to your point, yes, I think it does show a good vote of confidence, and I do believe that we've got the right guys in this building to continuously improve. And what I'm excited about is I think there's a lot of growth to be had, and there's been some good things, but our guys aren't going to get complacent, and I love what I've seen over the last couple weeks especially.
Thanks for your time, Sean. I know how well the Rams have practiced in recent weeks and how that's translated to victory. So I wish you a great week of preparation and see you in Santa Clara.
Yeah.
For Sean McVay, I'm JB Long. Appreciate you as well for joining us for this edition of the Coach McVay Show, presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC.